Will Matthew Stafford be with the Rams next season? That's the big question on everybody's mind. Well, some people's minds, I guess. They don't have many fans as it is, but let's act like they do. Matthew Stafford's reporting that, or it's reported that he's wanting $50 million, and I just don't think, personally, that the Rams are willing to pay that. They've given him permission to talk to other teams. There's rumors about Tom Brady reaching out to camps, or Tom Brady's camp reaching out to Matt Stafford's camp to get him to the Raiders. There's all these rumors going all the way around, and really what we need to talk about is, if you're the Rams, why would you let Stafford go?
I think it would be absolutely idiotic to get rid of him. I'm honestly, I guess I'm not surprised we're at this situation, because remember, they had the contract issue last year. Like, things got a little bit dicey. They were kind of up in the air for a minute, and then they got it sorted out. But the fact to me, Ryan, is that they were the team that came closest to beating the Eagles last year. Yeah. Remember, I mean, other than Jalen Carter wrecking that game is what stopped Stafford from throwing a touchdown to win the game. I mean, the Eagles dominated the Packers, dominated the Commanders, dominated the Chiefs. The Rams took it to them. We will talk about the teams that are interested in Stafford in a second, because I do want to look at that angle. But from the Rams' perspective, I don't know why you would want to change it when, to me, it's like, you had a legit chance to win the Super Bowl last year, right? You went on a Super Bowl run. You almost beat who ended up being the champs. Why would you not want to go again with adding more talent? I know Stafford's 37, I believe, so he's been in the league a while. I know he's banged up. He's taken a lot of damage. They're worried, how long is he going to play? All of that is fair. He's scheduled to make like $27 million in cash this year. Obviously, they knew they were going to have to change that. Okay, he's not going to make 27. He's worth 50. I don't blame him asking for 50. Prescott gets 60 a year. Burrow, 55. Jordan Love, 55. Trevor Lawrence, 55. Let's see, Jared Goff, 53. Of course he wants in that ballpark. Sign him to a 2-year deal and get it done. There's no alternatives. Why would you not do this?
Well, it really boils down to the money, I think. But like you said, he's worth it. Where else are you going to turn? And honestly, I think that if I'm Stafford and they've given me permission to start talking to other teams, and they're really not doing anything to act like they want to keep me. Sean McVay, I watched before the show started, was on Albert Breer's show, or at least Albert Breer reposted it, and he was talking to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and just the way he was talking, his mannerisms, reassuring us that we know that Matt Stafford's a stud about 8 times through the whole video.
I think Sean McVay wants to keep him as much as anybody. I think this might be a GM ownership thing with the contract. I think if it was up to Sean McVay, they'd sign him.
Yeah, maybe. Or he's reiterating that he's a stud so many times just so that way he's being nice to him as they kind of part ways. Whatever the case is behind closed doors, we don't know the full story. But my question, I want to know from you, this wasn't really on the script. If you're Matt Stafford, where do you want to go? Because assumingly you have maybe 2 to 3 years of good football left in you.
Well, let's assume 2. Let's just for the sake of assumption. 2. Yeah.
And we're not talking great football anymore because that time's passed. Okay, like it's not in your 20s anymore, right?
I still think he's a top 10 quarterback.
Sure, but he's not Matt Stafford of when he played through a broken collarbone or whatever it was. Okay, he's just not that guy anymore. So where do you want to land? Put yourself in Stafford's shoes. Where do you want to land? By the way, we couldn't afford to be in Stafford's shoes. No. Just want to get that out of the way. But if we could, where'd you want to go? Like what entices you? Obviously you want to go to a team that has a chance for a Super Bowl, right?
So that really actually is a good question, a good segue into like the second part of this conversation and what this entails. Because to me, Stafford has to ask himself, is this, and we see this all the time with football players, is this one of those situations where you want to get the most money possible? Is this just about, hey, my career's over, I got my Super Bowl, I don't care, I just want to get paid and go suck? Okay. Or it's like, man, you've already made $250 million in your career. You're going to make another, 40, 50 here. You're going to be in commercials and get ads. You have generational wealth regardless of what kind of contract you sign here.
Probably going to go on some sports show at some point.
Exactly.
Be an analyst,
Exactly. So why would you not want to be with a good team? Because when you look at the teams that are interested reportedly, and this makes sense, you've got the Giants, Steelers, Raiders, and Browns. The only team in that mix that's even considerably attractive or even remotely attractive is Pittsburgh, right? Is the Steelers with Tomlin because they got a good defense, but the offensive line isn't great. They don't have really any offensive weapons other than Pickens, and he's kind of an issue most of the time. Why? Why, if you are Stafford, would you want to leave Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, a perennial Super Bowl contender that almost beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs last year? Well, what for $15 extra million? I don't understand it.
Yeah, so then the question becomes, who's wanting this?
I think it's Stafford.
Is it Stafford? And is it really just over the money?
I think so.
That's asinine. Like if that is what I think about Stafford is needs to take a 180 right now, because I thought he was just a level-headed dude.
Well, hold on. It kind of depends on what the Rams are offering. So I agree with what you're saying, but then you got to look at it like, if Stafford's saying, hey, I'm looking at all these guys that make 55, 60, like I want to make 50.
Right.
If the Rams come back and say, no, we're not going to do that, man. We'll give you 40. Okay, well then it's Stafford's perspective seems fair because it's like, I'm not going to be paid less than, let's see, Aaron Rodgers, makes 37. I'm not going to make less than that. I want to make 40, 45 in that top range. I can't imagine the Rams are saying that though. I'm sure the Rams are in that 45 to 47 ballpark.
If the Rams extended an offer of 45, right, and he's so dead set on 50 that he's like, no, I'm just going to walk, I think that's a stupid move. If you leave an organization that has, like you said, perennial Super Bowl contenders almost every year under Sean McVay, like you have a chance. You're never at the bottom of the totem pole, and you've already done it once. You're comfortable with the team. You've got one of the best wide receivers in the NFL on your team. One of the best running backs as well with Kyron Williams.
Right.
So you have all these pieces.
You've got one of the best young edge rushers, Jared Verse. You've got a good defense. And the team's young.
Yeah. So why? I mean, this was like Brady's dream when he left the Patriots. Like if he could fall into a team just like this is the perfect recipe for an older quarterback to be successful.
Well, yeah, because Stafford went from Detroit, went to the Rams. They won the Super Bowl that year, was amazing, had that great run. They've still been good since then, but obviously taken a few hits, taken their lumps. Yeah. But the point to me too, like what you're saying, they've taken their lumps. They went through the slowly down phase post Super Bowl where they had paid everybody. Now they've got $45 million in cap space. They've got a really, really young roster other than Stafford. They've got young playmakers. They've got picks in the draft. They always draft well. Like this is the best situation for you.
That's what I'm saying. When you're looking at, back to my original question, if you're Matt Stafford and you ask yourself, I don't know how he addresses himself. Is it Matty? You think he goes, Matty, where do you want to go? Or do you think he goes, Matt? What do you think he calls? Maybe he's like, Matthew. You think he goes
I imagine
proper?
Him looking in the mirror like, get it together, Matthew.
That is probably true. Like a Paul Rudd Wanderlust scene.
Or it could be like Staffy. He might call himself Staffy.
Oh, that's almost degrading to yourself. But he's in the mirror and he's saying, come on, Matthew, where do you want to go? Let's put together a recipe or a plan of where we want to go. Who would you want around you? He would design a team that looks like the Rams right now.
Right. This is best case scenario.
So you take $5 million less. Dude, you're set for life. And I am an advocate for players getting the most that they potentially can because I try to do that in my job too. I want the most I can. But
he's
at the
made
same
a ton
time,
of money. Like
if I'm like, you're talking about legacy now, it's past money. It is now a legacy.
That's exactly because when you hear people, people on ESPN and shit, they're so scared to disagree with a player because you'll hear them say that, be like, players should get paid.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, we all agree players should get paid. The sentiment you're expressing, and I agree with it, is more talking about players getting their first contract, like after they've been on their rookie contract, and then it comes time to make their first big deal, and it's like, no, I'm not going to take a team deal. I want to be paid top of market. Obviously, that's what they should do. I agree. When you're Matthew Stafford, you've made $200+ million in your career. You're going to make another, 40, 50, plus all the sponsorships, all the partnerships, all the other things, like you said, analysts, the money you make outside of football.
Yeah, for that level star, your paycheck doesn't stop when your last day in the NFL ends.
He's a Rams legend for life because he's won the Super Bowl with him.
He's a legend for life. Like, he's the quarterback that people will, he's one of those that will be talked about forever. And he's honestly, a Hall of Famer. I think he'll wind up in the Hall of Fame. Even though it's not about titles for him, it's just his tenacity on the field is unmatched. Like, the fact that he stayed with Detroit as long as he did and got nothing out of it says something about the guy.
Right. And so then, and before we finish, I do want to look at it from the Rams perspective. If you're Stafford, and if it's, like I said, not a huge disagreement in money, I think if he ends up going to one of these teams like the Giants, Steelers, Raiders, or Browns, he's going to regret it. Come October, when he's getting beat to hell and fighting for a wild card spot at best, he's going to end up regretting it. So personally, I hope they work it out. I want to look at it we looked at it basically from his perspective. Let's go to the other side, because we don't know. We don't know the internal conversations. All we know is that he wants around $50 million. And in my opinion, I think you agree, he's worth it. That's the thing. The Rams have cap space. If you're the Rams, I wouldn't be fighting a hardline negotiation with Stafford. Now, the Rams are a well-run franchise. They do this often, and they usually win and do well with it. However, in this league, you have to have a quarterback. And here's the rub for me, Ryan. If you were going to do it, why not do it last year when the quarterback class was stacked? There were so many quarterbacks, 6 first-round quarterbacks that all were really solid to some degree. There are no alternatives to Stafford this year. The draft classes, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, we haven't really got into our draft coverage. I don't really love either of those guys. And even if you did, the Rams aren't in a position to go get them. There's no other free agent quarterbacks. The only other one on the market that people have talked about if Stafford leaves is Aaron Rodgers going here. It's like, why would you want to replace...
You sure don't go get someone like Justin Fields.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if there was a stacked quarterback class or a few alternatives, if you could go get a Michael Penix or something like that, I would understand. Be like, hey, we feel like we're going to have to move on in 2 years. Let's go ahead and make the transition. But in the position you are, where you're a Super Bowl contender, why? Why would you not just pay the man?
It's such a big step down to go anywhere else outside of Stafford. I mean, it's not just a couple of steps. I mean, it's a whole flight of stairs before you get to somebody who would just manage the team for, I don't even think there's somebody out there that could maybe deliver you a winning season.
Right. Exactly.
That's a big consequence.
So let me just as a businessman, try to put yourselves in their shoes. Why would they not do it? Are they just, do they believe that they can win without him? Is that what it is?
No. Again, it's always traced back to the dollar, man. If it is, in fact, the Rams that are not wanting to front up the money or at least come close and negotiate, I think they're saying, well, why do I put a fresh set of tires on a truck that's got 300,000 miles? I think that's kind of their thought process behind it. My argument would be, well, you got a Toyota, it's going to run forever. Like, just keep putting tires on it until it completely breaks down.
So that would be fair. And I get that. It's like, hey, we don't want to give him this contract because we don't know, he might only play another year or two or only a year or two at a top level. And I'm with you. I would say, okay, that's still better than the other options. It's like, I would rather have Stafford wearing down for 1 or 2 more years than to not have him and bring in Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins or somebody. Because, like, without Stafford, they're not a Super Bowl contender. Plain and simple.
So we got to wrap this segment up. Tristan Bunn, what do you think we see in the next 2 to 4 weeks, however long it takes? Could be the end of this week. We don't know. But 2 to 4 weeks, ideally. What's the headline?
I'm starting to get worried about it. But honestly, if we would have recorded last night, I would have said Stafford stays in LA. Now, like, I'm starting to get concerned. I'm going to go with my gut and say stronger heads will prevail. Stafford will stay in LA, because I just can't imagine he's going to go to the Giants and subject his career to end that way.
I completely agree. I don't even know if we'll see a big headline. I think it's just going to be him staying in LA. Maybe there's some kind of mind games that LA's playing with letting him go talk to other teams and seeing what he could fish out, and then maybe they're testing the market with him and seeing what they, what they could free up and what they could maybe get in return. But I tell you one thing, we're not going to see a trade like we did in the NBA with Luka and Davis. Like that's not going to happen. So what we're really looking at here is LA going to put up the money? Is Stafford going to accept? Because I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the final conclusion. They're going to both find themselves sitting back at that closing table, signing contracts with each other. I just don't see him going anywhere else. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else if I was him. There's nowhere in the market that's available right now.
No, I hope someone in the organization, whether it's McVay, whoever, I hope someone goes in there and says, hey, we need to get this done. Now, we didn't mention that a lot of this kind of started where his wife said on a podcast that sometimes Matt doesn't connect with his younger teammates and he comes home frustrated because of the locker room and stuff. Okay, so maybe there is an element of internal struggle.
Did he not know a popular song in the locker room?
I guess he might not be a Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm not sure. Either way, the point being is you don't think there's going to be friction in the Giants locker room? If there is any kind of internal struggle that we're not seeing, if it's more than just money, to that I would say get over it. As you said, I hope they all come to the same page and say, hey, both of us are better together, finish your career here, and let's go win a Super Bowl next year, because they can.